Hey, everybody, this is Scoots. This is a new kind of experimental version of Sleep With Me we've never done before. So welcome. These are just bedtime stories from our podcast, Sleep With Me. And to make them feel fresh, these ones are from a couple years ago. So if you're a regular listener, you might get a refresh. And if you're new, these are just bedtime stories from a show called Sleep With Me. They're strange, they're meandering, they're a little bit different. And all this is made possible by listeners like you, regular listeners like you. And so I just want to let you know that's how we're able to put the show out. And so if you are a fan of Sleep With Me, you listen to it on a regular basis, please consider supporting the show. You get ad-free episodes, you get ad-free story-only episodes, tons of other cool stuff at Sleep With Me Plus. That's sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus. But if you're in a position and you have some money every month, or you say, hey, maybe I don't watch that streaming service, I'd rather give it to a podcast, think about your favorite podcast. It doesn't have to be Sleep With Me, and support that podcast. If it is Sleep With Me, I consider supporting the show would be great. But if it isn't, or there's a podcast you listen to way more, brings you a lot of value during the day, please support that podcast. Podcasting is going through a different time right now, and your favorite podcast, the one you get the most out of, could use your support the most. So consider supporting it however they request support. Just check it out, like listen to the show or check out their website, or consider supporting Sleep With Me. If Sleep With Me, you say, oh no, Sleep With Me is the one I listen to the most, sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus. Thanks. Friends beyond the binary, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, everybody that's listening here, you're important. The show exists because you and your sleep is important. We're about to take a silly journey. Actually, this one's not so silly. It's a little bit silly. It's an attempted, this episode coming up after the intro and all that, so 30 minutes in or something. The bedtime story part will be a little train tour. And I said to myself, oh, this is just supposed to be the teaser at the beginning of the episode, but it's a meandering train tour of some gardens and stuff. Imaginary ones. Spoiler. But hopefully you'll fall asleep during it. It's imaginary tours, the best ones to fall asleep to. The imaginary free tours. Fall asleep during them. Thanks, everybody. It's time for Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. Hey, everybody, this is Scoots. This is a quick message here. If you get a lot out of Sleep With Me, if you're a regular listener, you like these new things we're trying out, like the story-only version of the show. If you're new, don't worry about any of this. But if you're a regular listener of Sleep With Me, or you're a regular listener of any podcast, if you have a favorite podcast, and it's not Sleep With Me, that's totally cool. If you have podcasts you listen to way more, or you get way more value out of, I totally understand that. Consider supporting that podcast. Podcasting as an industry is kind of going through a weird phase right now. Direct support from listeners is going to be, it seems like it's going to be the future of most shows. And so consider supporting the podcast you really love. And you could do that. You could find out, you could listen to the show and see how they ask to be supported. Or reach out to them and say, hey, how can I support you? Or if you can't afford, a few dollars a month, you say, hey, how else can I support you? But if Sleep With Me is the one, Sleep With Me Plus is the best way to support Sleep With Me. Sign up for Sleep With Me Plus. Not only you get unbelievably sweet different ways to listen to the show, but it's a huge help for us to be able to do stuff like this. But yeah, think about what your favorite podcast is, and then go ahead and go to their website, or if you already know how they like to be supported, support that show. Thanks and good night. Hello, welcome, have a seat. This is, can I have your ticket? Thank you. I'm just going to punch your ticket here. And you already, I assume you know where you are, but welcome to the North Pole Tours, the garden tour of the North Pole Gardens, garden train. It's another tour where this is a soft launch. I'm glad you're here to check it out. And I'm sure the first thing you'll notice is that our station is also a greenhouse. And you say, well, I didn't know the North Pole had gardens. And, we have different gardens for different times of year, but we also have a giant enclosed, we have people ask for plants for the holiday season as gifts. But here you see alongside your train, as the train's going to start moving, yeah, rows and rows of, first you see not roses, but there are roses. I think this is my first time giving a tour, so yeah, thank you for your patience. And I know hopefully you'll go on our other new tours, new North Pole tours. Welcome. But here in the station, that is also a greenhouse. Now, luckily, our train runs on, mechanisms, and the train ejects carbon dioxide, which is, what could be more wonderful for the plants that consume carbon dioxide and sunlight in this giant greenhouse and station. You also expel carbon dioxide. So even when you were waiting in the station, you were helping our plants. So that's a nice thing. But you'll see rows and rows and rows. You see the stanchions or the supports for our giant roof. And, as I traveled the world before, during, you've probably heard that we have an away time ourselves, but I did marvel at some of these train stations around the world. And, they were, not all of them in sunny regions, but a lot of them did have these type of, what do they call them? Glass and steel structures that are like greenhouses, but not very many plants growing, particularly. Some decorative plants, and sometimes you'd see plants growing. But because you see, well, the sun, lights the facility during the day and also offers some warmth. But, plants, they offer humidity, oxygen, and, just some freshness. And they also retain heat. So here you see, these are all hanging plants on either side of the train that we're passing, and the station does go from a grand station to a long greenhouse that we're still in. So it is just a few rows on either side of the train, but it kind of does look endless. And these are different baskets of hanging plants that can be placed in other baskets, whether we're decorating homes in the North Pole or visitor areas, or someone asks for a gift. And you could kind of see some of the flowers that are flowering right now. And they're seasonal. Again, this is, I will be looking through my guide to see what, you see, okay, those are S hooks, so holding the plants. And there's 2 levels of plants. But they're placed at intervals. So there's a higher plant and then a lower plant and then a higher plant and a lower plant, but not above one another. So they all get light, and they are kind of fed by a drip system invented by, more inventive elves than the elves that give, that are applying to be a tour guide here on the North Pole. I thought I could have sworn when I was writing down ideas for the tour that I had something garden, another G. But yeah, you see some yellow flowered plants, some reddish pink plants with, that are more of a, like you see ones that are a group of, those orangish yellow ones are kind of a trumpety type flower, which I like, heralds your arrival at the station or your departure. But then you see some, those single flower, those reddish, pinkish red plants with the white circle in the middle and some white highlights. Those to me do feel tropical. I don't know what flower they are, but they do feel tropical. And very nice. And while I was talking, we're passing out of the station now. And now we're passing into a swampy region. Now, I can't get into how we maintain its, well, I can because it's covered area as well. a different type of greenhouse that kind of seems seamless from where you are, because it is, this is some sort of technology the North Pole keeps from even well beyond my understanding. But this swampy region serves multiple purposes. So you see kind of those trees with the moss hanging down. A lot of those thick trees. And look at those branches. I don't know what kind of tree it is, but they're lovely, lovely trees. I may know. They gave me a guidebook, but how can I look at a guidebook when I can look at the window and see row and row trees, and then fern-like plants and palm-like plants closer to the ground. And this swamp is, it kind of serves, like I said, it's a wetlands, so the water for some of the plants in our area, in the station, it comes in through here. And also the non-clean water comes in from it, like at a little bit further off, because this is a part of our water processing, and a lot of it happens naturally. And now we're going to pass, so you can see we're passing a giant tower, and you're going to see different giant towers there. And those giant towers, now they're multi-purpose towers, of course, as a lot of things are here in the North Pole. So you say, well, that looks kind of like a tower that I'd see a WIZARD at. And I say, yes, I'm glad you noticed that, because we call that the Wizard's Tower. And it is a residence. I think it does have laboratories, but the majority of the tower is not hollow. But it is hollow, but filled with water. It's also a water tower. So it's a water tower and a tower. I don't know. I've never been in there. You have to have a special clearance. I said, so is it a Wizard's Tower for real? And they said, don't worry about it. But my understanding is that it maintains the water pressure for the swampy areas. And like the water, like they work together somehow to do the water levels. And it also was amazing. And I did ask this. I said, well, what if it was empty? Because it also acts as some kind of ballast and support. And there's other towers we can't see, with all these trees and things around us, that it also supports the roof or whatever's above us that's keeping this area warm. And I know you're going to ask, so I guess I'll talk about it now, is that there is some volcanic activity, just like you would imagine in beautiful books of imagination, that does enable a lot of this, because the sun itself could not keep the North Pole this warm. So, and then I'm anticipating some objections on the tour, which is understandable because everyone has their own perspective and feelings. But I do always say, well, there's nothing natural about, while we consider ourselves stewards of the world and the environment here at the North Pole, we also do have some responsible uses of technology and changes to the environment that we do try to mitigate. But, in my head, I would never say, well, there's nothing natural about what we do at the North Pole. It's part, they say like someone flying across the planet, and the distribution of all the gifts and then the different, international agreements we've met, if you've heard all of our myths, maybe there's a podcast about the myths of the North Pole. That it's not entertaining. People always fall asleep to it. But upcoming, we have some areas that are a little bit open. You could see these fields, and there's more than one thing planted in these fields. I could see some sunflowers. I could see what looks like some sort of, I don't know if that's a rhubarb or what is that, shard, I think it's called, Swiss chard or just regular chard. And some other plants, one that has flowers there, and then you do see some orange trees and citrus trees on the edge of the property there, and then higher up there's some bushes. And also the bushes, I think, is also serve, to help control the airflow and things. And now we're getting into a region we call, like I like to call the BEE region. And you'll see a big house there that looks like a fantasy type house with different bright colors. You say, wait a second, that house is not to perspective. It's larger than life. And what is that pouring out? The house has a chimney of stone. Oh, 2 chimneys of stone, yes, as you noted. Is that, and I say, no, those are bees pouring out of there. This is one of our regions. That is a bee house, or like a home for beehives is what we prefer to call it. And these bees you could see that were in a region. Now, right now, there are only some flowering things. There's hanging plants on there, and then in the nearby surrounding the house, there's some towering flowering plants. These plants you see out your window. They look like they're on some sort of stalk with little white flowers at the top, and a lot of pistils or stamens or something sticking out. But yeah, this is one of the houses that where bees live. It's but we're inside, and also yes, like that's why we built it as a house. To answer your other question, is the house is built. Below the house is a honey collecting area, and also smokers or poofers or whatever. For when, like we say, hey bees, stay calm or whatever. We're gonna do some work in the house, or some rearranging of the different, the different, I don't know, I've never been in there, but I imagine there's like all those beehive boxes or whatever. But I mean, can you imagine living in a place where, with a basement full of, you say, what do you got in your basement, honey? What do you mean, like in jars? No. My basement is liquid honey. It's full of honey. I mean, I don't know if, I've heard tell that, you're not supposed to swim in the honey, but that a few elves have, because the honey's processed, I think, or cleaned or something afterwards, because it's just been in the basement, So, I mean, I guess, yeah. And then you also see this is, there's more than one. Now, one thing that they like, you can't see just because of the angles is that these houses are built on rails. And what you don't see is that they can connect to this train track, believe it or not. And there is other tracks off of here. What are those called? Track sections or whatever. So that these bee homes can be moved to where the bees are needed. I don't know, because the seasonal, and like I said, I'm here. I'm just attesting to see if this tour is viable. This isn't supposed to be. None of these tours are supposed to be perfect, because that would be a fantasy. But yeah, you can even see the kind of street lights have their own planters too. So they the planters are even full of flowers. We all want the bees to feel at home, of course. And here coming up on your right side is another submerged wet area. I don't know what you'd call it because it's mostly filled with flowers. I guess kind of flowers that like to be in a wet area that's not I wouldn't call that a swamp or a bog, though, because it's full of flowers. And the flowers are a lot of different colors. I'm not sure what kind of flowers there are, but I would say, man, I really wish I had it. I guess I got to make a note for my tours to expand my vocabulary of colors. because I don't know how many times I could say maroon and lavender. And it could you say lilac when you're talking about a flower that's not a lilac? You can't, because I'm not even sure I would be able to. But you do see some ones that those flowers there are like a combination of white and a purple and a lavender. And then some are just a stark white, and some are more of an eggshell, and then some are getting into a parchment paper color. Then you have some deep, deep purple. And then you'd say these ones that are really close so look almost like flowers you'd expect to see under the sea. At least color-wise, you could kind of see, you'd say to yourself, is that like some sort of reddish, pinkish, not a hot pink, but capillaries almost against a white background? Or white capillaries against a red magenta. Thank you. That is a magenta. Holy magenta. Okay, now over here, coming on the left, is our topiary zone. And there's not a lot going on right now in the topiary zone. But those one day will be topiaries of famous figures of the North Pole. If this tour ends up being successful, they'd place the topiaries at different places. And also to celebrate, now not particularly, a lot of them are only going to celebrate elven values. So things like giving a smile, focusing on a task. So they would be at different places as kind of a reminder of what our values are. That one is the most formative one. I believe that one is going to be Have a Dance. That figure, they seem to be reaching out and holding a dancing dress that a lot of us enjoy wearing. And I think that would be a leg kicking up. But I could just be projecting my own values onto the future values topiary. Now, holy cow, we're lucky here. Look at that out that window. We see two people working, and one is standing and one is on their hands and knees, and looks like they're planting. You could even see little, those aren't forks, are they? Is that a shovel or spade? I believe that's a shovel. And yeah, so they're working there, planting little green things. I do see a couple purple and white flowers, so it looks like they're planting flowers, and I would say, wow, that's pretty nice to see. Now, oh boy, are we lucky here, because we're coming up on, and we should be going in and out of here, and you won't be able to see it because there's so much overhanging plant matter. But this is like an area that's highly humid, and we even kind of passed through like an air, what are those called? Like an air wall or something. But now you can kind of see the mist, and this is very, very swampy region. And it's misty, oh boy. And you could see as we come around to this bend here, we're up against a river. And I can tell you that this is a natural, there's a lot of liquid here, and we do stimulate this. So that river was not here originally. It is elven construction, but all meant to complement. Well, I mean, otherwise this would just be anyway, let's just set aside the tisk and the task, but. So underneath us this is a very active but stable geothermal region. And so all it did take was a little bit of that and a little bit of that, and then like roofing, to keep out the temperate cold to create this. It's like we could be much closer to one of those things that circle the globe, Is that what it's called? The Circle of Capricorn? I don't know. The Tropic of Capricorn? Is that or is that a book that has a lot of things that make you sweat in it. Yeah, I guess I forgot that we go right back out here. So hopefully we'll be returning. I guess my notes are off to the swampy region. But yeah, it looks like we're going on a winding path. Believe it or not, I fell asleep during so I guess maybe I dreamed a portion of the whole thing. But now we're going through, I do have some notes here, these are roses and petunias coming up, and we're kind of going on a meandering path through I see some red roses, I see some white roses. I don't know if, I always heard the term pink petunias, and they're on both sides of the train now, which is kind of exciting with those stone walls, holding them at bay. And sometimes, I'll be honest with you, I know that they also use, when you see a stone wall like that, it may be that they were building up the earth to a higher level. So probably some sort of North Pole production facility, maybe a top secret one, where they test out, I don't know, remote control planes or something that they don't want you seeing as as a visitor. But now we're taking a long bend, and we're going to go through another air pocket or air wall. And we're entering a little bit of a desert region. We're just going to go through here again shortly, but you could kind of see some different types of cactuses. And I actually have, I'm still learning. Like, I know there's yucca, there's a barrel cactus, prickly pear, and agave, and maybe just a regular cactus. So, like, those look like the movie cactuses there in the back. They even have, or cactuses from video games. You're right, because it does look like it has an arm, and that one even has a nice flower on it. And yeah, so this is a part for just the enjoyment on the train too. And you're going to see coming up here is another area that looks like a manor, and we'll see a couple of these on the tour. You can even see some statues, and this is like a view in the back. They say on like the backside of a manor, and you could see some plants there. I'm trying to see. I think I have some notes here. Iris, hawthorn. And that is an oak tree with the Spanish moss hanging from it. And there's other plants. There's definitely some ferny palm type trees there, and some ivy against the back of the manor. And you may say, what does that manor serve? And I'd say it's probably the back end of, I think it's like a like it's the elven equivalent of an elven apartment building, but this is the back side. And I would assume that a lot of them have a common area, they're built around a common plaza. And I think we're at an angle where there probably is, the plants are blocking, that maybe there are, like, again, our perspective is not great, but I would presume that there's elves enjoying their privacy in their breaks in that garden area. Now, not every elf wants to live in the not North Pole. This isn't for every elf. Some would even say manufactured lifestyle. But some elves do enjoy it. And as we kind of pass the outskirts of that area, you can see that this is a flower bed getting ready for something. I'm not sure. I think this is one of those flower beds where during the different times of the flowering year, they would have statues, or not statues, like within the like designs, floral designs. Is that what they call it? Like of different things, because you could kind of see the way the bed is. That grouping of flowers is almost meant to look like a flower, and maybe that other one is a bird. I'm not sure. Oh, and then thank you. This person coming through. This is not food. These are different plants here. This one you may recognize as a daisy, and this is like a daisy, and the next one is a marigold. Luckily, they have tags on them. And this last beautiful one, oh, describe the daisy to you. So white and yellow, but, I guess I would associate a daisy. This is a much more feathery daisy than if in my mind, I would have a much plainer daisy. And the marigold is very, I don't know, that is a very rich color, set of colors, oranges and reds and blacks all together. Like also almost autumnal in its coloring, but it has such a, like it's like a firework almost. And I think this is called a phyllox because isn't pH and F the same? Which I would have thought a phyllox was something you used in biology class or chemistry class to measure. But it's a nice purple flower. I would have said this, is it a honeysuckle? Do you know about the flowers? I was visiting the person that does the sleep podcast, History of the North Pole. And this was in the summer season, actually. And they showed me this plant where this flower, if you put it in your mouth, it tasted sweet. The bud of the flower, he said the bud of the flower tastes sweet. And I said, is this a honeysuckle? And he said, I don't know. But that's what the kind of phyllox reminds me of. But the phyllox has a little bit more of black and yellow highlights, where that one had more of like an orange and blue. And my other notes say that these are usually like longer stemmed plants. Oh, and thank you. Here's another round of plants for us to look at. We got baby's breath. Now, this is something you get in flour. It's usually used as a supplement there. And this one here is yarrow. Hello, yarrow. I like the look of this year. These two look like things if we were frolicking. Oh, and that one's a coneflower. Coneflower looks a little bit like it's not a sunflower, but you could say, well, I can see, why'd you get called a coneflower? Because it has yellow at the tips. It's a spread out flower. But it doesn't have that big fuzzy middle or whatever. Is that where the sunflower seeds are? I've always wondered that. Like on a sunflower, if the face of the sunflower is where the sunflower seeds are, which would make sense because you see so many sunflower seeds. But these other two, and maybe a little bit of this coneflower I could see myself running through, because that's what we're seeing out the window while I'm talking, is the fields of what look like wildflowers. But I guess they're not, they're wild. I don't know if they're technically wildflowers because it's a planned, it's a wildflower, planned wild, flowers. And also not that far, we see on the outside, it is bordered still by other things. So we do see some sunflowers there. And I don't know if those are rose bushes, kind of creating its own border on that side. And again, also controlling what we can see, the different levelings of the plants and the bushes, and what they could see on the other side. Then they don't have to hear the train go by. People that don't like train traffic, even though this train's very quiet because it doesn't have a diesel type engine. I always wonder you see those at the edge there, those white flowers. And I think maybe I have something in my notes about it, but when you look up close, that they're almost, they look like they're furry. And it doesn't look like a flower. It just looks like the furry white type plant. You know what I'm saying? It, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, and oh, those ones there, that's a different one. We're a little bit closer. That again is one. It looks like a flower, but as we get closer, that one like looks like it's dusted with powdered sugar or snow. That plant's similar idea to what I was talking about before. But you know, like, but not the same thing. You know what I mean? It looks like it was almost spray painted. You're correct in some sense. And then here's another field of flowers. I guess, would you say these are wildflowers? I think maybe I'm seeing some of those ones, those names I forgot. I see. Was those marigolds orange or is that some other flower? And then I see purple, and those are little tiny flowers. It does look like a little bit wild. And then that pink and reddish flower. That one does not look as what do you call that? Where we're running like it's a TV commercial and our hair is flying behind us. Maybe we're going into a lover's embrace or, someone's embrace. I mean, these are very beautiful flowers, but they're very dense. It doesn't look like not an area picnicking. Because you say, well, I probably have a little scratchy poo after running through those flowers. And there's really no way to run through them without feeling like I'm trampling on them. So different group of wildflowers than that other one. That was a little bit more spread out. This is a little bit higher density flower bed or, flower field. Oh, now here we go again. I think we're going out. I think we just went out and back in. I don't know if this is the desert or the edge of that one of the swampier regions, but see those trees there. And I think these are oak trees again, covered in different kinds of ivy and moss. Maybe the Spanish moss, but also some other ivy. And there's also a collection of, now this is all part of the plan, but you see some fallen trees. Now, I think a lot of those have been moved there because then there's other things growing on the old passed away trees that are on the ground, or even some are still standing. And even there's a nice fountain there. Maybe this is an area you could walk to from the other side. I don't know, but it's very nice. And, as we come around here, there's another collection of roses on the other side of that fountain. And it kind of looks, and there's maybe a tree there, and then there's some other bushes. And I would say that they're all entangled again. And then some nice trees, and again, we see another building rising up from behind the trees. And that building is stately. You're correct. It does have some towers. It does have, it's brick and stone. Now that I know for a fact is one of our libraries. And it's known for having extensive grounds. Now, we can't see them. That's one of the purposes of those, I guess, those fountains. Maybe we're the edge of the grounds from the other side. But all those trees and the fact that it's built up, the library is built up on a little bit of a hill and a rise. What we can't see in the valley below us, because we also have these other bushes in front of us here, is, grounds of the library for reading and strolling. I know there's sculpture gardens that I guess would be more for enjoying when you're there than from a view from a train. But yeah, we have, what else do we have here? Different, we can see out here the roses. There's some purpley plants, and some reddish plants, and then some pointy plants. I don't know, what are pointy plants called? And then I like those long flowering plants that look like they're stems with flowers. Oh, and then look at the hanging stuff. I wonder if that's the same plants you see in people's places, those air plants. It kind of looks like it, or hair. I'm surprised when you see it like that, it's like hair plants, but very, very pretty. And oh, we've exited again. And oh, we're actually outside now. We're on the edge of region where this is an interesting region now. This is a transitory region too. And you see, yes, some shaped evergreen bushes and trees here. And I think those are made, like, I know those are yew trees, not UYOU, but those are yews because we use the yews for different things, like in different stylized gardens. But also the yews are here because this is a transition zone. They're still off-gassing and releasing of heat and moisture. So where we're traveling right now is the roofs. There's no walls, even though we're in a slightly roofed region, to slowly being exposed to the outdoors. And you're also going to see some more bigger leafed plants that are very nice. Oh, and now we're curving back inside, and again, I think this is the same river, the swampy river there. You even see some floating plants in there, and I don't know anything about them other than they're plants that are floating. They really create a relaxing type mood, like make me relaxed. And I say, that's pretty nice. These plants are pretty nice. And they look good. Just floating away, just floating. I wonder if those are free floating plants. And again, we're going past some more gnarly trees with Spanish oak, and then some palm trees. There's one, I think there's a palm tree called the Bismarck palm, because I thought of like somewhere, in the greater North Pole, beyond the pole beyond the North Pole it always reminds me of Bismarcky. So I say, well, and then also the yew tree, but this is the Bismarck palm. This palm tree there. I don't know. They told me not to sing. They said, don't just let the biz, rest and be at the pole beyond the North Pole. And I said, but we just passed yews not that long ago, and now we have the Bismarck palm. And because of this another one, again, they say don't, but this is a silk plant, silk something. With silk tree, it's very spiky. So that again, like, I don't know, that somehow I put that all together into a song. But you use Bismarcky spiky silky tree. But yeah, this is a very spiky silk tree. I don't know if it has anything to do with silk itself, but it's very, very nice here. And it's very towering. I mean, it's a towering thing. And now we're coming around here to some more of these structured, these are, not all of them are geometric shapes, but this is a place where bush trimmers practice. So you see they have different, like, ways they've sketched out the gardens there. And so they have, like, the bushes. I think you'd see this in the UK in particular, where you have the bushes arranged, and then inside the bushes you have some trees, you have some plants, and the shape of the bushes. Some bushes are a little bit taller, and some are trimmed down low. Like, and I think some of those are like plants you might have with tea, or plants you might use in your garden. Oh boy, and next up we have a big, very large building that you can't even see. Now that is a living roof. I know that the California Academy of Sciences has a living roof, but these are A-frame type roofs here, or they could call them earthen roofs. It's not. It's earth covered roof. Correct. Yes. And it's got flowers, wildflowers, and grasses on there. And I think if I could live somewhere, I wouldn't. I'd want to rent. I would not want to own a home with an earth-covered roof because it'd say, well, what's the future maintenance costs? Also, ownership works differently here in the North Pole. But I say I wouldn't mind living in one because they said, well, it's got to be great for maintaining the temperature, but probably outside of the controlled climates areas. But in the off season, but even in the winter, I'd say. Probably be tougher to freeze if, depending on how many layers it was, and if it's warmer on the inside. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so we're coming back here. A couple more flowers to look at. This is a periwinkle. I want you to meet. Isn't this is a like? Would you call that a pink periwinkle? Or I'd say it's almost like a not quite pink. But I don't know what color to call it. And I have a couple more flowers. This is a geranium. I always think of geraniums, and I think of the smell of a geranium. And a poinsettias, of course, that is the next flower. Had to show you one of those. Couldn't let you get by without that. This one is a purple cone flower, also known as echinacea. Now you say that looks a little bit like a purpley, lavendery sunflower. And I'd say that's what it looks like to me because I just said it. And yeah, see, it's a nice little flower there. It's got nice leaf. It's very leafy as well. And then here, this one that my helper here is holding is known as a hibiscus. So we have some flowers that you may have familiarized, like with other, like hibiscus drinks or echinacea, other uses that you in the southern world use them for. And finally here, that we're approaching and going through, is a grassland. And this is where we circle back into the station. And they say some of this is decorative grass, because this is both good for, these are hardy grasses are hardy plants, or hardy. I don't know if that's HARDY or HERT, but both of those to me, they have strong hearts and stout bodies, And you say some of them look like wheats and some of them look almost flowery, that's nice too. And here we go back into the station with all of the hanging plants. I know it's supposed to have some statistics to impress you. And I know here at the North Pole we go through about, also the math is different. But so in your terms, I think it would be 30,000 or 300,000 basket-based plants a year. And that's about different seasonally, like you say, so says I'm like 1,000, like I say, yeah, it's about 30,000 at a time right now, like about 1/10. So you're seeing about 30,000 hanging plants in different stages of flowering and development. And I hope you enjoy the tours you watch as we sway into the station, the swaying of these holiday. I guess this is like I hope your holiday season is informed by flowers and plants and just taking the time. Because that's what we hear, that's what inspires us. I guess that's what the goal of these tours is to know what inspires the North Pole is growth. That's what I think the big boss is always looking for. They say, well, Is it this is not an all or nothing situation. Is it, are you growing? And we like to be around growth too. Some of us, some are more, straight, North Pole purists, but not me. I love this tour. So I hope I get the position, or I hope we just become sustainable. I take you on, but I have other tours planned for my testing tour phase. So thank you. This was the North Pole floral tour. No, not just flowers though. Growth to North Pole growing things tour. Thank you for attending. I want to thank everybody that became a patron recently. I want to thank Jesse, Prashana, and Darpan. Thanks, and good night. I want to thank Keely, Adelaide, and Kaylee. Thank you, thanks, and good night. I want to thank Dean, Daniel, and Kelly. Thank you, thanks, and good night. I want to thank Mateo, Hannah, and Holly. Thank you, thanks, and good night. I want to thank Daniel, Marianne, and Jordan. Thank you, thanks, and good night. I want to thank Tasha, Martha, and Tom. Thank you, thanks, and good night. I want to thank Barbara, Emily, and Ivan. Thank you, thanks, and good night. I want to thank Camilla, Tracy, and Amanda. Thank you, thanks, and good night. I want to thank James, Vera, and Martha. Thank you, thanks, and good night. I want to thank Emily, Elise, and Pratusha. Thank you, thanks, and good night. I want to thank Alan, Evelina, and Pauline. Thank you, thanks, and good night. I want to thank Eric, Kelly, and Andy. Thank you, thanks, and good night. I want to thank Jenna, Maureen, and Derek. Thank you, thanks, and good night. I want to thank Jesse, Brett, and Jonathan. Thank you, thanks, and good night. I want to thank Sierra, Lauren, and Arn. Thank you, thanks, and good night. I want to thank Eve, Valerie, and James. Thank you, thanks, and good night. Thanks, everybody, for support. Appreciate it. Thanks. Sleep With Me exists as a free podcast because the people that do take action, support the show on Patreon, or support our sponsors, or spread the word. Those are the three biggest ways to help the show, just to spread the word about podcasting even. And here's a little bit more about that. Thanks and good night. Hey, everybody, this is Scoots with a tuck you in message here for our bedtime story podcast. We're trying out, and I kind of said this, free way to support Sleep With Me and bedtime stories from Sleep With Me is join our referral program, sleepwithmepodcast.com/refer, R-E-F-E-R. You get rewarded for introducing people to the free version of Sleep With Me, including access to Sleep With Me Plus. But most of all, just think about what your favorite podcast is, or one of your favorite podcasts, and then support that podcast. It doesn't have to be Sleep With Me, but just to support your favorite podcast, because they could use your support right now. And if you decide, Sleep With Me is actually my favorite podcast, well, wow, blushing, seriously, even though it's imaginary here in this context, and support it at sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus. Or listen to a show you love and see how they want to be supported. Thanks.